All right, let's move on to problem number 3, betting for value. Here's the situation. We're in a single table online high stakes tournament, and the table has been playing very tight so far. The blinds are 10-20. We're in the hijack, it's folded all the way to us, and we look down at 8-9 of spades. Question 1, what do? You have 4 options. A, fold. B, call 20, which is 1 big blind, in other words, limp. C, raise to 60, 3 big blinds. D, raise to 85. Pause the video now, think it through, choose your option, and when you're ready, press play to see what Ace Solver recommends. All right, here's what actually happened. The perfect answer from a theory point of view would be to raise to about 2.2 big blinds, so somewhere around 45 to 50 chips. But in the actual hand, you raise to 85, which is a bit more than 4 big blinds. The small blind calls, the big blind folds, and we go to the flop with a pot of 190. The flop comes King of Hearts, 5 of Diamonds, 4 of Spades. The small blind checks. Now it's back on you. What do? Do you A, check? B, bet 100. C, bet 180. Pause the video now, think about your decision, and when you're ready, press play to continue. All right, let's look at what we should do on this flop. Because we were the pre-flop aggressor and we're in position, this is a great spot to continuation bet. A king-high rainbow board is very good for our range and not so great for the small blind's limp call range. Let's take a look at the hand evaluation window for our exact hand, 8-9 of spades. Ace Solver shows that we have a backdoor flush draw, we need running spades. A backdoor straight draw, we can pick up equity if a 6 or a 7 comes on turn and river. Right now our raw equity is low, but we still have some nice backdoor potential. On the other side, Ace Solver lists all the possible hands that beat us here. Top pairs with a king, middle pairs like 5s and 4s, and all the stronger made hands that can naturally limp, call preflop. Of course, if the small blind had a big hand like KQ or AK, they were often supposed to raise preflop, but hands like KX, 5X, 4X, and various pairs are definitely in his range. We can also see our Monte Carlo equity and the stack to pot ratio, which confirm this is a classic low equity bluff c-bet spot. Now, let's hit analyze. Ace Solver recommends a small continuation bet as a range c-bet, something like 30 to 50% of the pot, so roughly 60 to 95 chips into 190. In the actual hand, you bet 100 chips, which is perfectly fine as a small standard c-bet size. You fire 100, and the small blind calls. From there, the hand continues, but the key lesson of this problem is, on dry king-high boards where you have the range advantage, you should often bet small for value and as a bluff, rather than checking and giving up the initiative. In the actual hand, you bet 100 chips, which is perfectly fine as a small standard c-bet size. You fire 100 and the small blind calls. Now we go to the turn. The turn is the 8 of clubs, and the small blind checks to you again. What do you do now? A, check. B, bet 200. C, bet 400. Pause the video, think about your decision, and when you're ready, resume the video to see what Ace Solver recommends. All right, welcome back. After running this spot in Ace Solver, we can see that the solver likes betting most of the time on the turn, usually for an amount between answer B and C, landing around 300 chips, which is roughly 80% of the pot. Let's look at the hand evaluation first. We now have second pair with a 9 kicker. That's decent, but there are still a lot of hands that beat us here. Top pairs with a king, 2 pairs, sets, and some slow played strong hands. Now let's hit analyze and open the explain window. Ace Solver shows that we should bet for value and protection most of the time. We're ahead often enough to get called by worse, and we also want to deny equity to random overcards and draws. However, the solver will also sometimes check back this turn to keep the pot under control and to protect our checking range, because remember, the small blind called preflop and called the flop, so they clearly have something. The question is, how strong? Our current equity is around 60%, and the EV is slightly positive. Ace Solver also shows we have roughly 8 cleanouts to improve further, so we don't overbet, we don't jam, and we're not really bluffing anymore. We now have real showdown value, even if we're very far from having the nuts at this stage. All right, let's fast forward to what actually happened. On the turn, after the small blind checked, you decided to check back. Now we go to the river. The river is the 9 of hearts, which gives you 2 pair, 9s and 8s. Now everything depends on what the small blind does. You wait. And this time, instead of checking, the small blind leads out for 200. This is a big change compared to the earlier streets. They called pre-flop, they called the flop, you checked back the turn, and now on the river they suddenly bet 200, which is about half the pot. So now you're scratching your head. What do you do with your 2 pair here? You have 5 options. A, fold. B, call 200. C, raise to 400. D, raise to 700. E, go all in. Think about it. What is the small blind leading with on this river? And how should you respond with 2 pair? Pause the video now. Make your decision. And when you're ready, hit play to see what Ace Solver recommends. Welcome back. So now that the small blind leads for about half the pot on the river, Ace Solver's recommendation is clear. With 2 pair, you should mostly just call. Let's think about what the small blind can have here. From the small blind, you're going to see a lot of K to 5, K8, K9, suited or offsuit, pocket 5s, pocket 4s, and sometimes pocket 8s. All hands that can call the flop, check the turn as a trap, and now bet the river for value. If we open the explain window, Ace Solver shows that with your 2 pair, the best play is mostly to call. The equity required to call this river bet is around 26%, and against the small blind's range, you might actually have closer to 70% equity. But having high equity doesn't mean we should jam. If you shove here, you're mostly getting called by sets and stronger value hands like 4 to 4, 5 to 5, 8 to 8, and very rarely by worse. We also don't really believe 6 to 7 is still in his range by this point. So the correct idea is, take the value of your hand, but don't overplay it. Just call and hope you're catching an overplayed value hand or a desperation bluff from the small blind. Against some very tight opponents, folding occasionally can even be reasonable. But in general, Ace Solver prefers the call. That wraps up this 4-part Harrington Problem number 3, betting for value. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in problem number 4.